Okay, so this interface that we're using here, this command prompt, this is my shell environment. When you log into a Linux or Unix system from the command line, you're always using a shell. And the specific shell that's used in Linux, the default shell, is called the bash shell, B-A-S-H. And that shell environment, it gets its name from the original Bourne shell that was developed for Unix. The Bourne shell was a really nicely featured shell for Unix. And when Linux was being developed, they needed to add a default shell environment for Linux. And this updated version of the Bourne shell, called the Bourne Again shell, developed by Brian Fox, was used as the default shell in Linux. And that's where the name comes from, Bourne Again shell bash. So what a shell does, it's just a command interpretation environment. When I type some command, like the date command, I get some response. When I pressed enter, the shell interpreted my command, decided what to do with it, and then some result was produced. In this case, it printed the date and time to the command prompt. I also get a similar response if I type some garbage on the command line. It tells me that it was unable to find a command called lkaj whatever. And then, you know, that bash errors can be quite helpful. We'll look at those a bit later. But all you really need to know is this is a shell. It's the bash shell, and it's a command interpretation environment. So we'll start off with some basic commands. And I'd like for you to just try these commands to get familiar with what the output looks like and think about how they might be used. I'm going to change the size of my window here so we can look at both the terminal window and the slides. The first command is the pwd command. That will print your working directory. pwd stands for print working directory. And it just tells you where you are in the file system. And right now you can see I'm in my home directory. I'm in the home directory where all users' home directories are located. And then I'm in the directory called Galen, which is the same as my username. That's my home directory. Whenever I log into a Linux system, I start off in my home directory. Another interesting command that's on that slide is the who command. The who command will print a list of all the people who are currently logged into this system. And it will also show things like when they last logged in and where they're logging in from. So let me try that again. So these are all the people who are currently logged into the Palmetto cluster. And you can see the name of the users. You can see the time and date that they logged in, and you can see the location where they logged in from. So we can tell who's logged in from on campus and who's logged in from off campus. As you saw me use just a moment ago, the date command simply prints the date to the command prompt. And the other command there, the ls command, that's a very, very important command. ls will print the contents of the directory you're currently in. In my home directory on the Palmetto cluster, I've got a lot of files, so I've got a lot of junk in there. But you know, if you're starting off with a new account, you may have nothing in your home directory at this time. But that's all the ls command does. The ls command just prints the contents of your directory. The other command on the slide there is the df command. The df command will print a list of disk usage. It'll print a list of all the storage devices on your system and how much they've been used, how much is stored there. And as you can see, I've got a lot of information displayed here. I've got a lot of locations in the file system, and I've got a lot of information here, and it's really not very clear. And so what I'd like to do is tidy up that output, customize the output so that it's easier to read. And I can do that by providing what's called arguments or options or flags. In Linux, there are a lot of names for the same thing, and this is an example of one of those. If I type a command like df, and I follow that with an argument, that's also called an option or a flag, I can do that so that I can do that in a way that customizes the output of the command. So what I'm doing here is I'm running the df command, but I'm specifying that I want it formatted in a certain way with that little letter H, that dash letter H. And that's what the result looks like. I've formatted it so that now all those numbers display units, and it's easier to see what this output is referring to. And now what I've just done is I've made my output human readable. That's what the H option does. It just takes the output of a command and makes it human readable. And that's available for a lot of different Linux commands. On the next slide, I start talking about arguments that are coupled with commands. And the df-h is what I just showed you, making the output from a command human readable. If I want to read the contents, if I want to see the size of a directory, I can use the du-sh command. What that will do is sometimes, depending on the size of the directory, it might take a moment or two, but it will calculate and report the size of a directory. When you list the contents of a directory by typing ls, you don't get anything but the directory and file names. You can customize that command by creating long format output, ls-l, for a long listing. It gives you the same information, but additional information about permissions, file or directory ownership, what group that file or directory belongs to, the size of a file or directory, the date and time that file was created, and then of course the name of the file itself. Now that du-sh command, like I said, will tell you the size of a directory. The size of these directories here in my ls output are not giving me accurate numbers. All of these directories are reported as being 4096. That's not the correct size of these directories. So I need to do something else to find the correct size. And I'm going to use du, that's the disk usage command, followed by the sh options. That's S for summary and H for human readable. And then I specify the name of a directory. In this case, I'll try training. All right, so that directory you see is 5.8 megabytes in size, and then the command just reiterates the name of the directory. Some other useful commands that accept arguments in Bash. The export command is used to set a variable. Let me show you what that would look like. So export a equals some number. And now I've set the variable a to be equal to that number. Another command, echo, can print the value of a variable. And then you need to specify that you're talking about a variable by including the $sign at the beginning of the variable name. So I can look at the value of a by typing echo $a, and then the bash shell reports the value that's been assigned to a. The echo command can also be used to print out some text to the command line. Like that. Oh, whoops, made a mistake there. So as you see, the string that I've put in quotes is just printed out when I use the echo command. If you run a script, and we'll talk about that later, if you run a script and you want to print some output to the command line for the user, that's a very easy way to do it. It's just using the echo command. To create a directory, you just use the make directory command. I'll do that now. I'm going to make a directory and I'll call it test_dir. Then I can cd into that directory by typing cd and then the name of the directory. And so if I type pwd again, I can see that I'm in my home directory and inside the test_dir subdirectory. Now you can use the cd command to not only go into a directory, but also to back up out of a directory. You can type cd .. to move up one level. If I wanted to move up multiple levels, I could type cd .. and I could keep going for as many directories as I want to move back up through the file system. If I'm in some place other than my home directory. Let's say I'll go to some other file system somewhere else. All right, so now I'm in this new Scratch file system in my directory there. To get back to my home directory anytime, all I have to do is type cd with nothing else. Spaces are ignored by bash, so I can put as many spaces there I want. So if I just type the cd by itself, that always takes me back to my home directory. If I type cd followed by the dash or hyphen, that takes me back to my previous location, which was that small array directory in new Scratch. So I can jump back and forth between two locations with cd space dash. And again, the white space there, I can put a bunch of spaces before and a bunch of spaces in the middle of my command, and it still works because those multiple spaces are just considered a single chunk of white space by the bash shell.